Welcome to Two Souls Podcast, a podcast to shift, impact, empower, and disrupt your consciousness, ultimately allowing you to thrive on this human journey. Now here are your hosts, Amber Meganhauser and Angela Blaha. Hey Amber, how's it going today?
Great. How about you?
I'm good. What's our topic?
Today we are going to talk about emotions. What impact do our emotions have on us? And how do people deal with the emotion, let go of the emotion and the belief? So sometimes, like I know emotions are attached to physical pain as well. How can we let go of things emotionally and physically?
Ooh, the emotions. Everyone's so afraid of their emotions. So the first thing to do is to understand that the emotion, right? So we are not taught very well about what emotions mean, how to transform them, how to move through them, like how to even experience them. And every emotion, like everything else in this world, is completely based on your perception and your experience and your past and your programs, like how you've been taught. So emotions are they are the portion of us that we have to experience in order to move through consciousness. And by that I mean some of us are very, very have a real active emotional body, and some of us have a very inactive emotional body. And so you have to actually know yourself well. Again, that's the key to everything here, is knowing yourself. And how do you experience emotions? Can you even describe your emotions? Like I teach college courses in a local college here, and that is the one thing that people struggle with the most, because I make people do a lot of writing and a lot of expression in the classes that I teach, because I'm in the psychology world. And of course, psychology is all about, expressing and being able to understand your emotions. And so when I have them write, like it's so hard for people to express how they feel. So the first thing that I have people do is, okay, where does it show up in your body? Right? So like if we're feeling grief, or we're experiencing happiness, or we're experiencing anger, like where does it show up in your body? Where is it the most tense? Or where is the pain? Once you can get into that,
Yes,
like where's it at in the body, like then you can express it.
Yeah, I have, we always think that it's actually something physical. Our mind wants to relate it to, oh, my knee hurts, or oh, my back hurts, or, whatever it is. But we don't understand that the reasoning it really hurts is there's something emotional there that we need to deal with.
Right.
And it's actually very painful. It's actually, I dealt with this one thing with my back, and man, it was so crazy. And it was actually one of the most painful things I had dealt with. And it was like a 5-day thing that I had went through. And once I figured out what the emotion was behind it, it literally was gone in a couple hours.
Right. Yeah, that's how quickly we can move through things.
It was that drastic.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what just happened here? I finally recognized what it was, dealt with it, and it was gone. And I was like, okay, got that.
Yeah. But it took you 5 days to initially understand. So what was the emotion behind it all?
I had a lot of blame that I was holding on to about some things that had happened in my life, and I thought I had dealt with them, but I did not. And the minute I went to that place and realized what it was, I instantly knew it. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So I went through a little process with some oils and just even focus on healing it. And I always, when I do that kind of stuff and I know it's something I'm holding on to emotionally, I after I'm done with like my oil process, I always take a shower and I wash it all down the drain and let it go. And I did that like 6 times within like a 24-hour period. And like it was completely gone, 100% gone. I mean, instantly I felt better. I couldn't even hardly walk, but I instantly felt better. And in over 24 hours, it was literally 100% gone. And I had gone to the chiropractor like 5 times within like a 8-day period. And he even gave me his personal cell phone number. And he was like, I'm so worried about you. Can you call me tomorrow and let me know how you were? And the minute I dealt with it, I came home that Friday and I was like, no, there's more to this. And I knew there was more to it because it was like, that's when I finally realized that it had nothing to do with my back. It had nothing to do with going to the chiropractor. I did nothing to it physically. I dealt with the emotion, and literally by that next Saturday morning, I was fine. It was like I had nothing had happened to me. I'm like, this is so crazy.
Well, you bring up,
but it was awesome.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point of how layered our emotions can be, right? So I'm sure that when you did the first oil experience, you dealt with or you moved through that emotion, and then there was more, right?
Yep, there was. It's like peeling back the layers on the onion.
Yeah, right. And sometimes it can be ancestral emotions that we are experiencing or trying to express, and we don't even understand why we are expressing them, but it's linked to something in our experience. And so you're like clearing up all of those emotions on not just for you, but for your ancestors. So literally clearing DNA, which is something that we don't really think about. That's probably a subject for another podcast, but so know that that's partially why there are so many layers to our expressions here. So the other thing is really understanding definitions of what emotions are, because that can be a block all within itself. So when we grieve, let's say, we move through lots of different emotions. Like it's not just one emotion. It's not just sadness, or it's not just the word grief, right? Like there's lots of different emotions. There's anger, which really isn't an emotion. It's an expression of the emotions. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what's underneath the anger? What is the word or the emotion that's underneath the anger? Maybe it's resentment, or maybe it's sadness, or maybe, who knows what it is, but you have to sort of like move into that and ask yourself, well, what's really this about? What is this really? What is my experience and how can I express it?
Yeah, and understanding, you were totally right. Understanding what that emotion really does mean. You have to know that, because we always want to just go to something basic, like mad, sad, but when you really look at the list of emotions, there's so much more you can relate it to. And when you can say, oh no, I'm what I want to use. Makes me feel, I don't want to just say happy, but we're going to use happy. And it's a game changer when you actually can find the right emotion that goes to it. And then it's easier to actually heal it up. Because if you just say, oh, I'm happy or mad, it's not really dealing with it. It's just being aware that something's there that needs some attention. and what is the real emotion behind it, because there's so much there that needs to be dealt with, and having that exact emotion, it almost instantly changes it.
Right. I think that that's another area that we sort of bypass, I want to say, is like we don't really want to feel the emotions, right? And when we don't feel the
Yeah,
emotions, like we are just bypassing, or we are um, not actually dealing with our shadow self. And it's the emotions, I want to say the emotions are very much seen as shadow energy. Like we just don't even want to go there. And it's really not that bad. Once you express them, they just disappear. Once you give,
yeah, completely disappear.
right, once you give your emotions what they need, which is generally just acknowledgement, right? And the understanding of, okay, maybe I'm not actually feeling sadness, maybe I'm actually feeling lonely. That's a whole different vibration, it's a whole different frequency, right? So, how do you
Hmm.
overcome loneliness versus sadness? Do you see the difference? Like, it's a whole different, you're talking different ball games here. So,
Yeah,
we have to be willing, I want to say, to actually understand what the real emotion is here. And that's really what we're doing when we're working in shadow work. Like we're really actually digging in as deep as we possibly can to understand ourselves at a whole different level of consciousness.
yeah. You know, with that too, you said, um, dealing with the emotional part of it. So many of us, I mean, myself included, before, in my past, I was one of those people, I didn't want to deal with my emotions, and I just kind of swallowed everything. And I never really dealt with nothing. And then you think that you have dealt with it, but until something comes up like the whole back thing, you don't realize what is still within you that needs to be healed. And going from like the sad to the lonely, yes, that's like completely what I was talking about. Because yeah, when you're lonely, you're also sad too. So you just kind of chalk it up to, oh, I'm sad today, but it's not. And you have to tell your body, like, okay, what do I need today? Like, how do I transform from being lonely to being satisfied with myself, instead of looking for other people to satisfy me? So
Right,
I really worked on that to heal all of my stuff within me, because as I went, I realized like how much of my past I literally just like swallowed and pretended like it never happened. I never dealt with it. I never wanted to think about it. I just thought, if I let it go, it's gone. And it's not. You physically have to deal with the things from your past. Otherwise, you will carry it forward from generation to generation.
yeah, it becomes like a plague within yourselves. So once you move through those, Amber, through the emotions of that, like, do you still feel those emotions, or are they completely gone? You just have memory now. See, that's one of the things is once we move through our emotions, like we don't have to express them again and again and again and again. It's when we hold on to those things and we don't express them, or we don't understand, what the experience was really. That's when we hold, that's when we have to experience them over and over and over and over. They become the pattern. When you move through them, like you can have the memory, but you don't have to have the emotional trauma any longer. So was that part of your experience?
Yep, it definitely was. I do still have some of the memory, but I have no emotional trauma with it. I completely healed that up. And to be honest with you, I think I had I worked so hard on like dealing with so many of my past emotions that today I don't have a lot of emotions to things. I am just kind of, I just have this level about me, and I don't have a lot of emotions. I don't react to things. Some people would be like, well, aren't you sad about that? Or, doesn't that make you like feel down? I'm like, no, I don't. I have like no emotion to it because I've realized how when we attach emotions to everything that we're doing, it's 10 times harder to figure it out. You always have to go back and like readdress it to heal the things instead of just dealing with it today. So the past stuff, I have no emotion. I feel like I barely have any emotion at all, to be honest with you. But I've healed so much stuff that that part of it's just not there no more. And even the memory part of it, like I think some of that's gone too, just because I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need to remember that. It's not really healthy anyway. So I just like let it all go completely.
Yeah, so let's look at this a little bit differently. If we look at it as a through a consciousness level, what happens is you still have emotion, Amber, but you respond to life rather than react to life. And when we're in that stage of reaction, we're constantly reliving the emotional trauma. And so the emotions are just like right
Yeah.
there and they're triggered automatically or sometimes so unconsciously we don't even know what's happening. And you're constantly reliving the emotions. When you work through those emotions and
Yeah.
you work through that shadow kind of energy, like you still have emotion, but it's more of an understanding kind of emotion, and you're never triggered by the past trauma any longer. It's a whole different perspective and it's a whole different level of conscious understanding versus conscious reaction or unconscious reaction.
Yep. You are completely right. I definitely respond to life instead of react to it. Yeah, that's exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
and you're not reliving the emotional trauma over and over and over, which is what we do when we don't
Yep.
actually deal or express the emotions or understand them. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Life is so much better on the other side of dealing with the shadow
Oh my
energy.
gosh.
Yeah.
You don't even realize how miserable you are in life until you deal with those and they're gone. And life is just completely blissful when you can learn to respond instead of react.
Yeah. Well, you heal up that emotional trauma and then you're not triggered by it constantly. You're not still living in the past. Instead, you're experiencing life as it happens in the moment. That's a huge, huge conscious awareness pattern that becomes very free in your energy.
Yes, definitely live in the moment.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, because when you deal with those shadow emotions or the trauma emotion, what happens is you become very, very present instead of living in the past or afraid of the future. And you experience life as it happens in this moment versus how it was happening in the past.
Yeah. And you're completely right on
Wait,
that. Where when you have emotional things that you're dealing with, that stuff plays on repeat in your head and you cannot get it out. All you can do is come up with all these scenarios to completely sabotage yourself and everyone around you because you cannot let it go.
right? Yeah, and it becomes automatic repeat, constant. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yes.
that's when life is heavy, right? That's when life is like so
Yes.
like you don't even want to get up. You don't want to experience anything. You're
Yeah.
just constantly hiding, and and then what happens is you pick people in your life and you pick experiences that will re-traumatize you every single time.
That is so crazy that you said that. I literally just had an aha moment. Like, that's why that happened.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because you don't know anything else other than, experiencing and living trauma. And like that, so then you just are constant repeat. Well, of course you're going to bring those people into your life again. Of course you're going to, have those kinds of experiences again because there's no other awareness, right? There's no other level of consciousness except for the repeating patterns.
Yeah. When I was going through my really heavy stage in life, I had migraines bad. Like I was so sick. Like I didn't even want to deal with life because I was just like sick every single day. And I was in the hospital like every other week getting these IVs because I had migraines so bad I would just be like throwing up, throwing up, throwing up. And once I made that decision that no, like this is not what life is about. Like life is so much more than this. And like that's when I started to understand that it was all emotional things I was going through and literally knocking me down where I just would lay in bed for I mean, I would have these for 3 to 5 days and I couldn't even come out of my room because it was too much for me. I would I had to have it completely black. I was just sick, sick. And once I started dealing with these emotions, that's 100% what it was. And I have now been migraine free for like 4 years. I don't even barely get headaches for anything.
Yeah.
And so I look at how heavy things were then and the emotions I carried because I did not want to deal with them. You just bottle them up like they're going to go away on their own and they don't. And once you deal with them, it literally takes you from like deathly ill to completely healthy.
Right. That's misery. So in the beginning there, Amber, like how did you
Yeah.
start to experience or move through your emotions?
I just decided one day that life was too short to feel like this. There had to be another way. And essential oils definitely kind of helped on my journey with that. But I just made my mind up and I was like, no, like I am not going to feel like this every day. Like life's too short. So I would the very first time that this had happened, um, I was just having one of them days where um, I was sick. I had a migraine. Like I couldn't be the best mom. Like everything was just, it was like, there was so much going in my life. I just felt like I couldn't even take no more. And I had talked to a friend of mine and she asked me if I had this certain essential oil book. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I opened it up and there's a emotional release process in there. And I'm like, she goes, there's probably like 50 oils you can use. They give you a bunch of different options. And she's like, just pick the oils that you have and do what you can. And I'm like, okay. Because this was when I very first got into it. So I didn't have that many oils in the beginning. And I'm like, okay, I think I had like 4 of them that were on the like list of 50. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so I went through this process and I was like, holy crap. Like afterwards, I literally had this just like, I cried and I cried and I cried. And afterwards, I took a shower and I got out and I felt like a completely different person. I'm like, okay, definitely holding on to some emotions there. So I started doing this every single day. And then afterwards, after I applied all the oils wherever they were supposed to go, I would just lay down for 20 minutes and I would just think about the experience, think about the emotions I needed to go through, figure out what I needed to release. And then I would always take a shower afterwards. And that was kind of the start of all of this happening. And I just literally opened a book one day and I was like, no, life's too short. How can I make it better? And that's what started like my whole journey. And nothing happens overnight. Like it is one step in front of the other when things are so heavy that you don't even know what to do. You just seriously have to pick something and do it.
Right.
And that's what I did. I just opened the book and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And that's where I actually started on the whole journey. I just decided to pick myself.
Yeah.
And the oils kind of guided me in the beginning, and everything else just flowed. I mean, I've done a ton of things to like help me get to where I'm at, but that was the very first thing that I tried that opened my eyes to every bit of these migraines are something I'm holding on to emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's the physical body, right? Because it's what we pay attention to the most when we have pain. And none of us want
Yep.
physical pain, right? So that's the awareness component, right?
Yep.
The physical body becomes the awareness component. Well, then the next step in that is making a decision and saying, okay, I'm done having all of these physical problems. I want to live life, right? So you have to literally decide to live. From there on, it's just like like what you did. You just stayed focused on healing, on moving through the trauma, on expressing the emotions or letting them express themselves and giving them what they need. And then the next stage, which is where you are now, is creating life the way that you want it to be. Like you went from survival to thriving within a few short years, and
Yeah.
working that 4-step process, which is what I teach all the time. So yeah, the awareness and then making that decision is so powerful. Like that's the thing.
That is the number one key to changing all of it. After that, you'll move forward every single direction, but you have to decide to pick yourself.
Yeah.
And decide that life is better than where you're at right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So simple 4 steps, right? Awareness, decision, focus, and creation. Thank you all for joining us today.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Today has been amazing. We greatly appreciate everybody that listens to our podcast. If you have any subjects, anything you want to ask us about, please feel free to reach out to me, ambermeg2@icloud.com. It'll be great to hear from anyone and everyone. Until next time, from our soul to yours, have a super fantastic day.